Hello, I'm Sarah Moore, Monitoring Consultant with the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia. And with me today I have Talisha Woodson, Monitoring Consultant, also with the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia. In this tutorial, we will cover completing the columns on the budget form for the mid-year and end-of-the-year expenditures. These are captured under first and second halves of the fiscal year. I will cover completing the mid-year sections, and then Talisha Woodson will discuss data entry for the second half of the year. When you look at the mid-year expenditures column on your budget form, it is column F, actual expenditures. These are expenditures and revenues that come from July 1st through December 31st of the fiscal year. To begin completing this section, you begin with Section A, column F. For Section A, column F, you're going to report the total amount expended by the local lead agency for each budget line item during the reporting period. This includes payments that were made during the reporting period for services that may have been delivered prior to this period. When calculating percentages of expenditures that are based upon a salaried employee who provides multiple service types, you divide the amount expended against that employee's average provisions for these services. So if we use an example of an employee whose annual salary and benefits total $40,000, we start by dividing that, and the mid-year point by 12/31 should be $20,000. So if this person spends 10% of their time in assessment for service planning, then we would expect to see under assessment for service planning $2,000 in the mid-year column. If they spend 20% of their time in developmental services, you would put $8,000 in the developmental services column. If they spend their remaining 70% of their time in service coordination, then for service coordination, you would designate the remaining $14,000. Once you've completed Section A, you begin with Section B. In Section B, revenues by source, you're going to be working in column C, actual revenues 7/1 through 12/31 of the fiscal year. Here you're going to report the total income by the specific source during the reporting period, regardless of the date of service. Be sure to record the actual amount received. After recording the actual revenues that you receive in column C, then you will go over to column D. And in column D, you're going to report the actual expenditures broken down by revenue sourced for the reporting period, regardless of the date of service. Section A breaks down your mid-year expenditures by the expenditure categories. Section B breaks down your mid-year expenditures by the reimbursement source. Your total in column F, line 47, must match the total in column D, line 67. Be sure the data entered in the mid-year columns reflects the actual amount expended or received. It is not realistic that all amounts entered would be half of the amount budgeted. It is also the responsibility of the local system manager to compile data from contract providers and submit the contract therapy provider report. So let's take a moment now and look at the provider report. Local system managers receive a therapy provider report to distribute to all contract providers. Systems should establish a due date for submission at a minimum of 2 weeks from the date the mid-year report is due to the state to allow time to compile the data. Please advise your contract providers that there is a tutorial recorded for the contract providers completing this report that is on the VEIPD website along with this tutorial. The therapy provider report also includes an instruction tab. When you begin your therapy provider report, you will begin in Section A, and you'll record the total number of 15-minute service units provided in the first half of the fiscal year by all therapy providers for all services listed. You also have an other category for any service that is not already included. This might include a service such as social work or vision. What you're going to do here, where it says other specified, you will write the name of the service and then include the number of 15-minute units. For section B, in column C, line 21, you will enter the total amount of expenses reported for service coordination from all therapy providers during the first half of the fiscal year. In section C, revenue, you will work in column C. And in this column, you will enter the total of all dollars reported by all therapy providers for each funding source. Be sure to include only the revenue that is received by contract providers. To avoid duplication, do not report any revenue that was received by the local system on the therapy provider report. For example, if your local lead agency does the billing for a contract provider and your local lead agency retains the revenue, then those totals are included in section B on the mid-year column for the local lead agency. Therefore, the revenue for that provider should be reported as 0 on the therapy provider tab. The mid-year information on the budget and the therapy provider report are due to the state office by the date listed on your contract. Talisha will now discuss entering data for the second half of the fiscal year to complete the year-end total.
Thank you, Sarah. A final fiscal report of actual revenues and expenditures and a final therapy provider report is due to DBHDF on or before the due date identified in the Part C contract. The end-of-year reporting period is January the 1st through June 30th. All figures reported must be actual revenues and expenditures, not estimates. As Sarah has already gone over with the mid-year, the end-of-year is very similar in how the data is going to be entered. We're going to talk a few minutes about some of the differences that are going to happen with the end-of-year. For the end-of-year, as I stated, the end-of-year reporting period is January 1st through June 30th. So we're going to go over to Section A, Column G, actual expenditures, January 1 through June 30th. And we're going to report the total amounts expended by the local lead agency in each budget line item during the reporting period, including payments made during the reporting period for services that may not have been delivered prior to the reporting period. For more information, we're going to hover over comment here. As specified previously, all red triangles do have explanatory comments. Under Section B, Column F, Section B being revenues by source, we are going to report total income by specific source during the reporting period, regardless of the date of service. Also under Section B, Column G, we are going to report actual amounts paid for the reporting period, again, regardless of the date of service. Once those sections have been completed on the actual budget form, we're going to move over to the Provider tab. Under Section A of the Provider tab, again looking at the end of year, January 1st through June 30th, we're going to enter the total number of 15-minute service units provided by all therapy providers for each service area listed. Under Section B, we're going to enter the total amount of the expenses reported for service coordination from all therapy providers. Under Section C, we're going to enter the total of all dollar amounts reported by all therapy providers for each funding source. Please note that if these totals are included in Section B of the mid-year report or end-of-year report for the local lead agency, then revenue should be reported as $0 on the Therapy Provider tab. If you have any questions about the mid-year or end-of-year budget process, please contact your local Systems Part C technical assistance consultant or monitoring consultant. Thank you for your time today.